It has never been more clear than it is right now. We are sitting and talking about some key takeaways from the Rams matchup versus Dallas Cowboys. We're also talking about what the Chargers just announced, all on today's episode of the Rams Digest. I'm your host, Joshua Giron. Remember, if you guys not subscribed to the channel, do me a favor. Press the subscribe button now, as roughly 65.1% of you guys are watching the videos, but you're still not pressing that subscribe button. All I'm saying is if you're already watching the video, might as well press that subscribe button so you don't miss any daily Rams content here at the Rams Digest. First things first, shout out to that win yesterday. Shout out to Joshua Feinhersh as well for coming out last night with a video post-game. Always going to be kind of tough to get those post-game videos out, but appreciate him already getting it done in preseason game one. Hope you guys had a chance to go look at that and look over his video and see what his key takeaways immediately after the win were. But today we're talking a little bit more about some more detailed takeaways in general, right? Key takeaways from the game. What are kind of the questions that we had going into the game that we were kind of expecting those position battles to kind of go on, and what have we learned from that game, right? Now, you're not going to go ahead and say, oh, this is it, set in stone, this is what's happening here and there, but you do get kind of a clearer picture of what the team can look like, especially when we're talking about the back end of the roster of guys who are going to make it, guys who may not, unfortunately. We're talking about all that, as I'm already talking about the wrong story here. We'll talk about what the Chargers got going on in just a second. But here, we're talking about 6 key takeaways from the Rams' 31-21 win over the Cowboys. This comes to us from Cameron Da Silva. Obviously, I'll give my own 2 cents as well, pulling some highlights here from his article. But Stetson Bennett, right, not going away quietly as the Rams' QB3. That's definitely one key component there. But we're also talking about other key pieces here. And, you know, obviously when we're talking about the preseason, I do want to note here, we are not necessarily going to sit here and see Matthew Stafford and Devontae Adams and what that connection is going to mean to the Rams, as that's very important to the success of this team this season. How is it going to affect Puka Nacua, his availability? Is he going to be more open? Is he going to be double teamed more? Is Devontae going to get obviously the advantage there? Is Tyler Higbee going to be healthy? Is Matthew Stafford going to target him alongside possibly Terrence Ferguson at some point? Those questions are not obviously going to be answered at this point. That's not really what we're looking for when we're talking about these preseason matchups. We're really looking at the back end of the roster again and kind of just taking those key takeaways of what we kind of expect to the back end of the roster to look like, I should say. So Stetson Bennett, that's definitely one key component here. He looks like a completely different quarterback, again, coming to us from Cameron Da Silva, but I do agree, right? Stetson Bennett looked incredible. I mean, not necessarily like starting quarterback quality, but he looked like a legitimate backup quarterback in the NFL, and you do want that as your third string quarterback. You know, a lot of times we just saw on the Dallas Cowboys side of things, right? Joe Milton looking more like the third string type of quarterback, but he is that backup quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys, right? Looking at how a player like that played, not necessarily having the best of games, not to say that's the end-all be-all for his season this upcoming year, but it is a little bit telling to see how confident Stetson Bennett looks. He just looks like a different player. He's out there slinging the ball around, just kind of commanding the offense a little bit better than he has in the past. Of course, his run game helping him out. We'll talk about that in a second, but overall, that's definitely one of the highlights, I think, early in the game. We immediately kind of realized when he was launching the ball down the field to guys like Xavier Smith, who we'll also mention in a bit, was mentioned by Joshua Feinhersh yesterday. But, you know, year 3, right? He's becoming that guy. He's becoming the solidified third-string quarterback who can probably have no question be that third-string quarterback for the Rams. And potentially, if he was for somehow, some way needing to be in the game in a pinch, the Rams can feel pretty confident that they have a capable backup quarterback as their third stringer. Is he going to be the future quarterback of the Rams once Jimmy Garoppolo and Matthew Stafford move on? Probably not, but ultimately, right now it's looking good. And for his trajectory of his career, it looks pretty solid right now for a guy like Stetson Bennett. Moving on from that, a guy who really helped make Stetson Bennett look pretty good. We talk about this position battle in terms of special teams, right? What is Xavier Smith going to do when he's competing with Britton Covey, a guy who also has a lot of experience in terms of returning punts, more than Xavier Smith. But ultimately, it's going to be very difficult to let go of a guy like Xavier Smith if he's going to continue to play the way he did, the way he was blocking, the way he was getting open, the way his energy throughout the game. Obviously, the team kind of rallying around him, rooting for him. Those are all definitely key components that I noticed for sure. You can see here, Cameron DeSilva says not only can Smith contribute as a return specialist, but he offers value on offense too. Showed that on Saturday by catching all 3 of his targets for 55 yards. He wasn't just a gadget player either. He won on a deep route on the left sideline, and also caught a pass in traffic on the opening drive, elevating to make a grab between a safety and a linebacker. Whether the Rams like him or Britton Covey more on punt returns, Smith is going to make the 53-man roster for his all-around versatility. And I do think if, maybe you don't want to say it's set in stone yet, I think it's going to be very difficult for the Rams to move on from Xavier Smith after how he played in week 1, of course, or game 1. Of course, there's still more games, still more practices to go around. Of course, other guys may step up and make some plays themselves, but it's going to be difficult after that performance to convince Rams fans or anybody watching to say that guy does not deserve to be on this roster, right? Moving on from that, the running back room, right? That looks like a pretty solid room. We know what Kyren Williams is going to bring to the table. We already knew what Blake Corum was going to bring to the table, yet we did see him get the start. We saw him get a couple of touchdowns, rushing for 32 yards on 9 carries, scoring those couple touchdowns in the red zone. We talked about that, right, a couple weeks ago or a couple episodes ago. The Rams, in practice, maybe were having issues, supposedly, in terms of the red zone offense. Matthew Stafford's not there, all that good stuff. The run game, right, is obviously a key component of the red zone. Blake Corum showing that, hey, he can run the football and run it pretty well, especially close to the line of scrimmage. Now, or close to the goal line. I will say this, from what I know about the Dallas Cowboys, they have never really been very good in terms of slowing down the run, let alone their third stringers or second stringers as well. So definitely want to kind of take a pause on it and not get too excited about the Rams rushing offense, because, yes, they rushed for 180 yards or so total on the night, but again, the Cowboys are not very stout run defense, to say the least. Not to disrespect them at all, but they just aren't, really. Jarquez Hunter then mixed it in as a backup. He carried it 11 times for 41 yards, showing off physicality as an inside runner. Yeah, definitely looked like a big, strong running back. It's interesting to see what the Rams are going to do at running back. I think they can probably carry all 3 backs, and I would expect it to be Kyren, Blake Corum, and Jarquez Hunter. But Cody Schrader also, right, finishing, kind of looking pretty good out there. Ran all over the Cowboys, you see here, midway through the fourth quarter, finishing the game with 59 rushing yards on only 5 carries. Also caught a 9-yard touchdown pass from Stetson Bennett to give the Rams a 24-6 lead. So behind Kyren Williams, however it's going to pan out, the Rams do have solid talent at the running back position. Their running back is going to be okay regardless of how things look. Kyren Williams is your guy. The rest of the guys will get mixed in throughout the year, and I think hopefully they do a good job of mixing them in so Kyren's not beat up when it comes down to the playoffs. You know he has a fumbling issue. You don't want him tired, weak, fumbling at the end of the year. Hopefully the Rams do a good job mixing it in throughout the year so Kyren's not necessarily needing to carry the ball 250-plus times in order for you to win. Moving off of that, last but not least, I think this is the last one we'll kind of note here. I know there's some more to talk about, but, just the last kind of note from what Cameron DeSilva saying, and also what I think is kind of a key to kind of take away. Puka Jr., Sean Dolak, they both were bright spots in this game. They were flying around the field, taking great passes to the football, and making plays against the run after completions. Nate Lamb and Omar Spates are entrenched as the starters, but Paul and Dolak are guys to keep an eye on throughout the preseason. We talked about a lot about, different guys we may not necessarily want to play heavy minutes at the linebacker position, right? Not to be too mean about anyone on the roster, but, generally speaking, right, the Rams do have an interest to see who can now step up at the inside linebacker position. So far, it looks like they do have a solid number of linebackers who can definitely at least put that effort forward, look pretty solid out there. If they're thrown in the mix, I think they'll do a good job of playing that kind of team defense. They'll be solid, I think. Puka Jr., Sean Dolak, they're going to be solid pieces on this roster. I think they're probably both making the roster, if not at least one of them making the roster, so that way they can kind of have that depth at the linebacker position. But overall, other than that, I mean, that's kind of where we're at, right? One last note here, I guess. I wanted to double check to see if I wrote anything else. Hey, O-line getting a lot of mix and matches out there. They're obviously trying to do their best to figure out what the O-line's going to look like. I will say Sean McVay did sit and discuss the offensive line today, talking in an interview and on the off day, discussing some things that we'll talk about in a second in terms of a team practice coming up with another team. That because one just got canceled, we'll obviously talk about that. But generally speaking, when we're talking about the left tackle position, Alaric Jackson, right? It seemed like when Sean McVay was asked that today, he mentioned 3 names: DJ Humphries. He mentioned I'm blanking on names right now. McClendon Jr. and he also mentioned Quessenberry. So all 3 of those guys kind of being guys who can, Quessenberry and McClendon kind of being those swing tackles who can play right, they can play left, and DJ Humphries probably being that starting left tackle for you if Alaric Jackson is not ready to go in the opening game of the season. So that's kind of what it looks like in terms of the offensive line. So it's nice to see these other guys getting some kind of run, getting some time at different positions. But ultimately, we're really honing in on what the backup right tackle, left tackle is going to look like, what the starting left tackle is going to look like if Alaric Jackson is not ready to go week 1, looking like DJ Humphries, Quessenberry, McClendon Jr. kind of guys that are going to be on the roster for that potential position to kind of help out as depth pieces. So interesting nonetheless. Let me know your key takeaways from the game. Some things you guys saw that you guys wanted to talk about. I know I saw a comment on Joshua Feinhersh's video, talking about Josiah Stewart. I think there's definitely a lot of things we can sit and discuss in that game. Still things to go back, watch again, kind of break down as well. Let me know what you guys noticed, something that hasn't been mentioned that much, and something you want to talk about on the next episode of the Rams Digest so we can kind of look into it and discuss it for you all. Moving on from that, I know it's been a long one already, but canceled. Real quick, I already spoiled it earlier because I pulled the story up. The Chargers practice with the Rams practice, I should say, with the Chargers has officially been canceled. Chargers canceled joint practice with the Rams because of injury concerns. There was a couple memes, I guess you can call them, I saw on social media about the Chargers seeing what the Rams look like in the preseason, kind of running away from it, not wanting to compete against the Rams in practice. I do genuinely believe the Chargers are dealing with some injuries. They'd rather not even risk it. A couple preseason games, you don't need joint practices at this point as much anymore because you're going to have those practice games anyway, so it's fine. And that's kind of where the Chargers are at. Chargers canceled their joint practice with the Rams this week. Rams coach Sean McVay said the practice set for Wednesday at the Bolt facility in El Segundo was off because of injury concerns amongst the Chargers. Truth, Chargers coach Jim Harbaugh said Sunday, that's the biggest reason. We still got 2 more preseason games to go. First-year New Orleans Saints coach Kellen Moore said the team was working on setting up a joint practice with the Rams. The Saints are practicing in nearby Irvine as part of a 10-day visit to California during training camp. Chargers were the first team to open training camp and are playing an extra preseason game because they were in the Hall of Fame game, beating Detroit 34-7. So injury concerns valid for the Chargers in terms of what it's going to look like for the Rams if you're really interested and who they will have a joint practice with this week. They're actually, according to Sean McVay today, they're going to have a joint practice, probably most likely working it out with the New Orleans Saints. Kellen Moore and Sean McVay have discussed this conversation. They're in the process of planning it for Thursday. And in terms of where they're going to practice, obviously far for either one to go from Irvine to Woodland Hills to Irvine, either way. So with that being said, Sean McVay says they're going to have a mutual site in around the Carson area. Not 100% sure on where they're going to practice, but he says there's some nice fields around that area. Carson seems to be the place they'll have a joint practice. Rams Saints this coming Thursday. So very interesting to see if you guys can somehow find a way to get to those practices if they're going to be open. That'd be interesting to see. But overall, definitely important note, I guess, to note. Maybe the Rams not practicing against the Chargers, now practicing against the New Orleans Saints coming up very shortly. Moving on from that, last but not least, trivia of the day, my favorite part of the episode, where I ask a trivia question. You give your trivia guesses down below in the comment section. Whether you're right or whether you're wrong, give you a shout out on the next episode that I'm on here at the Rams Digest. Last episode trivia of the day was kind of a fun one. We asked this question here as I try to find it. Which quarterback threw a touchdown pass to himself in a playoff game? This one, a lot of you guys may have missed because I was only able to squeeze a quick video in before the Rams preseason game versus the Cowboys. So if you missed it, don't worry about it. If you did miss it and you want to play along or think this was an easy one, play along with today's trivia of the day in just a couple of minutes. But now we'll give a shout out to the people who did see it, did play along. Here were the people who guessed with last episode's trivia of the day. By the way, multiple choice options for that trivia question, which was which quarterback threw a touchdown pass to himself in a regular season, playoff NFL game? Was it A, Patrick Mahomes, B, Marcus Mariota, C, Brad Johnson, or D, David Gerard? Few guesses here. We had the real J. Will says, I'm going to guess Brad Johnson. Not sure Mariota or Gerard made any playoffs. Glider says, my trivia guess is Marcus Mariota. Rams House says, my guess is Marcus Mariota. And Floyd guessed Brad Johnson. The correct answer for the trivia of the day of which quarterback, let me make sure I pulled the correct question this time. Which quarterback threw a touchdown pass to himself in a playoff game? The correct answer was B, Marcus Mariota. He did make the playoffs, the real J. Will, back. I think he was when he was with Tennessee. It was a wild card matchup. He threw the ball. It got bounced back to him and caught it in midair, ran in for a touchdown. Marcus Mariota is the correct answer. Thank you for all for playing along. Special shout out to Glider. Special shout out to Rams House for guessing Marcus Mariota correctly. If you got it right, or whether you got it right, whether you got it wrong, appreciate all of you guys for playing along with the trivia of the day as always. If you want to shout out just like these folks on the next episode that I'm on here at the Rams Digest, play along with today's trivia of the day, which is this question here. Which NFL franchise was the first to appear in 4 consecutive Super Bowls? Which NFL franchise was the first to appear in 4 consecutive Super Bowls? Multiple choice options for this question are here. Was it A, Dallas Cowboys? Was it B, the Buffalo Bills? Was it C, the Minnesota Vikings? Or was it D, the Denver Broncos? Which NFL franchise was the first to appear in 4 consecutive Super Bowls? The Dallas Cowboys, the Buffalo Bills, the Minnesota Vikings, or the Denver Broncos are your multiple choice options. Other than that, that's going to do it for me on today's episode of the Rams Digest. If you're still watching, I really appreciate you for tuning in to today's episode. If you're not subscribed to the channel, consider pressing that subscribe button before you leave so you don't miss any more daily Rams content. Other than that, that's going to do it for me on today's episode. I'm your host, Joshua Giron, and I'm out.